إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بعد. Today is the 27th of Ramadan and we continue the Sira of the Prophet ﷺ. So today inshallah we're going to talk about Isra and Mi'raj. So Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj is the night journey. Isra meaning going from Mecca to Jerusalem. Mi'raj is ascension from Jerusalem all the way up to the seventh heaven. So this is Isra meaning from Mecca to Jerusalem. Mi'raj is from Jerusalem up to the seventh heaven. This is what happens at Prophet ﷺ. As far as when Al-Isra and Mi'raj happened, there is a difference of opinion about it. There are 6 opinions as to when it happened. The first opinion is that it occurred during the year in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored the Prophet ﷺ with prophethood. This view was chosen by Tabari. Of course, this is a weak opinion. Second opinion is that it occurred 5 years after the beginning of the prophethood. And this is the view preferred by Nawawi and Al-Qurtubi. The third opinion is that it was the night of the 27th of Rajab during the 10th year of prophethood. This view was chosen by Allama Mansur Puri. The fourth opinion that it was 16 months before the migration to Medina. And it means the 12th year of prophethood. The fifth opinion, it was 1 year and 2 months before the migration to Medina. Sixth opinion, it was 1 year prior to migration during Rabi' al-Awwal in the 13th year of prophethood. So there are 6 opinions as to when Al-Isra and Mi'raj happened. So those that celebrate Isra and Mi'raj on the 27th, they don't have any proof that it actually happened on that night. It's one of many opinions. Now this Isra and Mi'raj and the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ, the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ also, scholars not agree when it happened. Some say it's 12 Rabi' al-Awwal, but the correct opinion was actually the 9th of Rabi' al-Awwal. So why do you think these 2 events, we don't have the exact time for them? Simply because there is no ibadah, there is no worship associated with these 2 events. The fact that there is difference of opinion is proof that there is absolutely no worship associated with these 2 events. Anyone that worships Allah, singles out these nights for special worship, this is what a bid'ah is. This is an innovation. It's something that the Prophet ﷺ never did, his companions never did. And if it had any benefit in it, as far as worship is concerned, the Prophet ﷺ would have legislated that. The same way we know the other types of worship. When Hajj starts, when Salat starts, when fasting starts, these things, basically we have measures to figure out when we do these things. So the fact that these 2 events do not have an exact date is further proof that there is no ibadah legislated in these 2 nights. Ibn al-Qayyim said Allah's Messenger ﷺ was carried physically, because here the question is, was al-Isra al-Mi'raj an actual physical trip by the Prophet ﷺ, or was it a trip of his soul without a body, or was it only a revelation in dream? 3 opinions about this. The correct opinion is that it was an actual physical travel with body and soul. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said Allah's Messenger was carried physically according to the correct view, from the sacred mosque in Mecca to Bayt al-Maqdis in Jerusalem, riding on al-Buraq. What is a Buraq? Buraq is an animal that is shorter than a mule, higher than a donkey. It's white in color and it's very fast. So when it hits with its hoof once, it hits at the extent of its sight, in other words at the horizon. So one single beat with the hoof, it goes fast. So it's faster than what we know today as far as airplanes, trains, etc., right? And of course, today when we see hypersonic missiles, we know that if humans can make this, then of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make an animal that's faster than that, right? So this is what buraq is. Al-buraq actually was the animal used by our prophets. Ibrahim alayhi salam used to use al-buraq to go between Jerusalem and Mecca. Okay? So al-buraq is the animal that's used by the prophets. So when he alayhi salam reached Jerusalem, he tied al-buraq to a ring in the gate of the Bayt al-Maqdis. Bayt al-Maqdis, there is a gate and there is an actual ring where usually all prophets tie their animals to it. And as a matter of fact, the following day of Al-Isra al-Mi'raj, the Christians that were in charge of Bayt al-Maqdis, they saw traces on this ring, and they realized that something was different, that there had been a prophet sent. So this is further proof of the of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the previous people in their books as far as the coming of the Prophet ﷺ. Then during that night, he ﷺ led the prayer with all of the prophets. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrected all of the prophets physically, that means body and soul, in Bayt al-Maqdis. Bayt al-Maqdis, by the way, as just a note, if you see today, there are two mosques in what you see Bayt al-Maqdis today. Bayt al-Maqdis is a whole complex, right? There are two mosques, one with a golden dome and one with a green dome. One is with the golden dome and one with the green dome. Which one is Bayt al-Maqdis, the golden or the green? Who knows the answer? Green, exactly. But oddly enough, throughout all the pictures that have been circulating among the Muslims, they say Bayt al-Maqdis and they give you the picture of the mosque of the Dome of the Rock. Because the Jews want to destroy the other one. So the Muslims, they're going to be concentrating on the golden dome, thinking this is Bayt al-Maqdis. Bayt al-Maqdis, the golden dome of the rock, that's actually the Qibla of the Jews. That's the Qibla of the Jews. So that's a sacred mosque also for the Jews. They're not going to destroy it. But Bayt al-Maqdis, the one that has the green dome, that's the one that is sacred to us. And that's where the Prophet ﷺ led the prophets in prayer. How many prophets were there? Does anyone know the name of the prophets, the number of the prophets that existed since Adam alayhi salam? Prophets and messengers, 124,000. This is how many Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to mankind out of His mercy. So that mankind don't have an excuse against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling Him, I did not know. 124,000 prophets and messengers were sent to mankind. He alayhi salam led them all in prayer. And the fact that He led them in prayer is not something peculiar. There is an ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a messenger to their people, He took a covenant from that messenger that if a prophet, Muhammad were to be sent, that messenger and his people should believe in Muhammad. And they gave that testimony to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ لَمَا آتَيْتُكُم مِّن كِتَابٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ ثُمَّ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَكُمْ لَتُؤْمِنُنَّ بِهِ وَلَتَنصُرُنَّهُ قَالَ أَأَقْرَرْتُمْ وَأَخَذْتُمْ عَلَى ذَلِكُمْ إِصْرِي قَالُوا أَقْرَرْنَا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single prophet, Muhammad was given the news that Muhammad was going to come. And Allah took the covenant from these prophets that you and your people shall believe in this messenger. That's why Prophet was mentioned in the previous books. Actually, even the Hindu books, he's mentioned by name, subhanAllah. Muhammad in the Jews, in the Jewish books, is mentioned as Muhammad Im. Im means sir. So he alayhi was mentioned all previous. Why? Because this is for the mercy of those religions, the people following that religion, so that when a messenger comes to them, they will recognize him. They will say, yeah, he's the one mentioned in our books. This is why many of the Christian priests and many of the Jewish rabbis that wanted to follow the truth became Muslim, like Abdullah bin Sallam radiallahu anhu. Abdullah bin Sallam was a Christian, was a Jew, Hibr was a Jew rabbi, and when he saw Muhammad ﷺ, he recognized him in his features and also in his behavior. So he believed in him. But most of them don't. That's why he ﷺ said, if 10 among the Jews follow me, all the Jews would follow me. Shaykh Abdul Rahmanullah explained this hadith. when he said, if 10 of the Jews follow me, means if 10 of the rabbis of the Jews follow me, the Jews, all the Jews would follow me, because the Jews, they adhere strictly to their rabbis, to whatever they do to them. They can kill them, they can actually, well, I would go, but they do some bad things to their kids and stuff, as is very famous in some stories that happen in the US and in Jerusalem, in the bathhouses, and they don't talk. They cannot talk. They say, if you talk, you're like an apostate. So they follow their rabbis 100%. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, they even took them as gods, besides Allah. If they tell them something is halal, they do it. Even if Allah tells them in the Torah it's haram, if the rabbi says it's halal, and vice versa. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. اتَّخَذُوا أَحْبَارَهُمْ وَرُهْبَانَهُمْ أَرْبَابًا مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ. So he also said, if 10 among the leaders of the Jews, the rabbis, follow me, all the Jews will follow suit. But they didn't. Only a few of them did. So he ﷺ prayed, led the prayer in the Masjid al-Aqsa with all the prophets as an honor for this ummah and for the Prophet ﷺ. After that, Jibreel ﷺ gave him 2 vessels, one that has milk and one has alcohol. He told him to choose. So he ﷺ chose milk. So Jibreel ﷺ told him, you chose the fitrah, the natural disposition. If you had chosen alcohol, your nation would have deviated after you. But he ﷺ chose the better of the two, which is the milk. Then Jibreel ﷺ ascended with Prophet ﷺ to the heavens. First heaven, and then, of course, the gatekeepers. By the way, when we look in the sky, we still did not reach heaven. Everything you see, all these galaxies, Milky Way, and all that stuff, all that is under the first sky. Mankind haven't reached the first sky. Plus, they can't go through it, right? Because there are gatekeepers in every heaven, in every sky. So the gatekeepers of the first heaven asked Jibreel alayhi salam, who was with you? He said, Muhammad alayhi salam. He said, was he sent for? Does he have authorization to come up to the heaven? So he alayhi salam said yes. So then he alayhi salam, when he reached the first heaven, he met Adam alayhi salam there. He met Adam alayhi salam in the first sky. These prophets that the Prophet ﷺ met, they're actually the souls of the prophets that are in the heavens, but a shape was given to their souls so that they can look like human beings when the Prophet ﷺ was there. Okay, all the prophets except Isa alayhi salam. Except Isa alayhi salam. Isa alayhi salam is in the heaven, body and soul. Understand? The other prophets, their bodies are buried in this earth, and as the Prophet ﷺ said, the earth does not eat up the bodies of prophets, but their souls are in these heavens, as we will see. Adam alayhi salam was in the first heaven, and the Prophet ﷺ greeted him, made salam to him. Adam alayhi salam returned the salam, and then testified to his faith in Muhammad alayhi salam prophethood, because as we said, all prophets have to testify to that. So he alayhi salam saw the souls of the martyrs on the right of Adam alayhi salam, and the souls of the wretched ones, the people of the hellfire, on the left of Adam alayhi salam. That's why there is a hadith where Adam alayhi salam looks to his right and he smiles, and looks to his left and he cries, because the people on his left are his progeny, people that will go to heaven. Ask Allah to make us among them. And on his left, people from his progeny that will go to hellfire. Then Jibreel alayhi salam ascended to the second heaven. Again, he saw entry, the gatekeeper greeted him, let him enter. In the second heaven, there is Zakaria alayhi salam and Yahya alayhi salam. They are called Ibn al-Khala, the cousins. Okay, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he send Yahya, John? He sent him to confirm the prophethood of Isa alayhi salam. Musaddiqan. The angels told Yahya alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you a glad tidings of a son named Yahya, who's going to confirm the prophethood of the word of Allah. Musaddiqan bi kalimati min Allah. So this was the job of Yahya alayhi salam. And they were Ibn al-Khala. This is the correct way, by the way. If a person has to leave or something and you're doing a lesson, you just gesture to the person giving the lesson and then he can tell you to go. This is the etiquette of attending the halaqah. Knows best. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet ﷺ, in the Quran, he's telling the believers, Sahaba, don't leave. When you gather in the Prophet, don't leave. Ask permission. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Prophet ﷺ, if they ask permission to go for one of their matters, then give them permission and ask forgiveness for them. Okay, so these are things that there are etiquettes and there are some consequences. So Isa alayhi salam and Yahya were cousins, and they are in the second heaven. There too, they made salam to Prophet salam. They welcomed him and expressed their faith. They expressed their faith in his prophethood. Then they reached the third heaven. Yusuf alayhi salam is the third heaven. Same thing. Salam testified to the prophethood. Then reached the fourth heaven. Fourth heaven is Idris alayhi salam. وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when the angel of death came to Idris alayhi salam to take his, when it was time for Idris alayhi salam to die, because he had friends among the angels, an angel of his friend told him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that you're going to die. So Idris alayhi salam told him, take me up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that I can talk to him and ask for more time to live. So he went with the angel, and then they kept on ascending until they reached the fourth heaven, and then they saw the angel of death waiting there. The angel of death says, Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered me to take your soul in the fourth heaven, and I came here, and I'm like, how is Idris alayhi salam going to be here? He's on earth, but here you are, you came. So Idris alayhi salam knew that it was decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the angel of death took his soul in the fourth heaven. وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. This is in Tafsir ibn Kathir. So Idris alayhi salam is in the fourth heaven. Same thing, made salam, returned greeting, expressed his faith in the prophethood of Prophet ﷺ. Then he went to the fifth heaven where he met Prophet Harun alayhi salam. Same thing, greeting, salam, expression of faith in prophethood Muhammad alayhi salam. Sixth heaven is Musa alayhi salam. Same thing, Musa alayhi salam greeted Prophet salam. And then he went to the seventh heaven, and that's where Ibrahim alayhi salam was. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored him. Every single messenger that came after him is from his lineage. Every messenger after Ibrahim alayhi salam is from the lineage of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Then he was carried after he met Ibrahim alayhi salam in the seventh heaven. He alayhi salam was taken to Sidratul Muntaha, the remote lot tree. Sidra is a lot tree. It's the type of tree that has fruit. The fruit in Arabic is called nabaq. We say nabaq. It's actually a tree that has some thorns. But in Jannah, these trees don't have thorns. Wasidrin mandud. Mandud means with no thorns. So this tree of sidra is something that's important. It's actually also used for ruqya. Scholars said that a person you want to do ruqya, you take 7 leaves of this sidra. You make it into small pieces, you put it in some water, you read ayat of the sihr, for example, or magic, and then you can drink some from that, and you can also wash yourself with it, and it can help you with Allah's will. It's something that some of the companions did. So the Sidrat al-Muntaha. So the low tree is the end of creation of this universe. Sidrat al-Muntaha is the last thing that belongs to this universe and this creation. After that, there is the pedestal, kursi, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the arsh, throne, and above the throne is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making istiwa in a manner that befits His Majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa, we don't ask how, as Imam Malik says, we have to believe in it. Allah told us He made this istiwa in 7 places in Quran, we believe in it, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. So he alayhi salam went to this low tree. It's the remotest low tree. It's the last one in this creation. And he was also shown Al-Bayt al-Ma'mur. What is Al-Bayt al-Ma'mur? It is actually physically directly above the Kaaba. It's the place where angels worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Prophet ﷺ said, every day 70,000 angels go into this Bayt al-Ma'mur. They worship Allah in it, then they leave and they never go back to it until Day of Judgment. So imagine how many angels Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. And this Bayt al-Ma'mur is for the angels to worship Allah. And Bayt al-Kaaba is for us, human being and jinn kind, to worship Allah on this earth. So the Kaaba is for human being and jinn kind, Bayt al-Ma'mur directly above it for the angels. Okay, Al-Bayt al-Ma'mur, which is called, it's mentioned in the Quran, Wal-Bayt al-Ma'mur. Okay, so it's not something just everything's in the Quran, we just have to read and understand, subhanAllah. So that's called a much frequented house because, as we said, 70,000 angels enter this house, Bayt al-Ma'mur, they worship Allah in it, and then they leave, they never go back until the Day of Judgment because they need to leave room for other angels to come and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then he, alayhi salam, was presented before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was brought near such that he was at the distance of 2 bows length or less. So alayhi salam was very close to the Sidrat al-Muntaha, and beyond that is the kursi, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he was very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala physically. He alayhi salam. And of course, he was asked alayhi salam, did you see your Lord? So he said, how can I see him? Nur. There's light. Because as we said before, there's a hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a veil between him and his creation. This is a veil of light. Because if this veil were not to be there in this physical shape that Allah has given his creation, we're going to burn without this veil. So out of our protection, Allah has put this veil, in this world so that we don't see him. As far as the hadith says, لو كشفها لأحرقت سبحات وجهه إلى ما انتهى إليه نظره. If Allah took away this veil that he put between us and him, then the beauty, subhan, the beauty, the glory of Allah's face will burn every creation. Because in this way that Allah created us, we cannot see him. That's why he told Musa alayhi salam, you cannot see me. Okay? And but in the hereafter, when Allah recreates the people of Jannah, they will be able to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The people in the highest levels of Jannah, we ask Allah for us to be among them, will be able to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a daily basis. On a daily basis. The ones in the lower heavens, they will see him on Fridays. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to his servant as he willed, telling him the salat. So salat was ordained in the Isra al-Mi'raj in the 7th heaven. So this shows you the importance of salat. This is why I wonder sometimes when someone asks me, if I don't pray, am I a Muslim? I mean, really, this is a rhetorical question. Yeah, look, if you don't pray, your Islam is in question. Some scholars said you're a kafir. Some scholars said you're not a kafir unless you deny that it's mandatory, or unless you don't believe in your. If you don't pray, why even belong to this religion? I mean, really, seriously. Umar radiallahu anhu said there is no share in this religion for he who does not pray. Prayer is everything. Prayer is the most important pillar. It's the most important pillar in Islam after Tawheed. But of course, after Tawheed, because if someone does shirk and prays, his salat and all his ibadah is negated, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. Oh, sorry, 22 minutes. Okay, so in any event, quickly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet ﷺ that we Muslims have to pray 50 times a day. 50 times a day. So he, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, took that instruction coming back down. He met Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam is strong-spirited, subhanallah. Even with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, let me see you, O Allah. So he told him, look, the Jews have to pray 3 times a day, and they couldn't handle it. Your ummah is not going to be able to handle 50. Go back to your Lord and ask him to reduce. So As-salam went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah reduced it by 10. Back down. Same thing Musa. He says 4 is still too much. So he kept on going back and forth until Allah reduced it to 5 times a day. And then Musa told him, go back. It's still too much. Prophet said, I'm too ashamed to go to my Lord and ask him for less. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, my decree has been passed. It is 5 times a day that you pray, but you get the reward of 50 prayers. You get the original reward. Allah's mercy, subhanahu. So we'll stop here, inshallah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala.